Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here once again with the Money Trekker podcast, and we're excited today to have my friend Jim Howicz on. Jim is a business attorney, has a huge background in working with business owners, worked in corporate counsel for a couple companies, and he really today works as almost like an outsourced corporate counsel for smaller businesses. So really excited to ask Jim a lot of questions today, and certainly get a lot of good information from him. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here with the Money Trekker podcast, and I have my friend Jim on today. Jim is a corporate attorney and an outsourced corporate counsel. So, Jim, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well today. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Glad to have you on the show. Looking forward to learning a little bit about what you do and sharing some of the things and advice that you might give to newer business owners or small business owners that have been kind of winging it without a corporate counsel all along. Can you start off and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I've been a lawyer for 30 years this year. Doesn't seem like 30, but it is what it is. I started out, I graduated from Tulane Law School in 1991 and was offered a job. It was the honor graduate program for the Justice Department. So I spent a year with the Justice Department as a clerk for the immigration court in Chicago. So I basically wrote the judges' opinions and did their research and helped them do that. And then after that, I spent a brief time at a law firm. I decided that immigration was not going to be my career of choice, and moved and worked for a company called CCH, which writes books about business and tax law, and was there for 5 years, and then moved into really kind of the main part of my career, which was I took a job as corporate counsel for an auto lender. And from there on, I worked there. I worked for Discover Card and Wells Fargo. And then in 2002, I was offered the opportunity to lead the Consumer Financial Services Group legal department for Dell Financial. And over the course of the next 10 years, kind of took over the whole function of leading the how are you going to pay me part of Dell from the legal side. And it was a good job. It was a global thing. So we did financing all around the world. And but 10 years at Dell is long enough. And I left with the opportunity to work with some of my clients who were leaving. And we started a company that was a software platform for financing. And I was their general counsel. And it's really interesting to work at a startup. And that ran for 3 years, and we went the way of a good number of startups where we spent all the investors' money, and then they took over the company and decided that they should have new people running it. And so I took a job as the general counsel of another lending company called Marlette Funding, which is still around, and helped launch their program. Did that for about a year and a half, and the issue with that was it was in Wilmington, Delaware, and really missed living here in Austin. And so I had the opportunity to join the law firm I'm at, Richards, Rodriguez, and Skeith. And the interesting thing about that is that I was their client. So when you're a general counsel, you hire attorneys to represent the firm to do things that you don't have the core competency for. And my partner, David, was kind of my main outside lawyer. And so he offered me the opportunity to join the firm. And I've been in private practice for the last 6 years. So kind of did it backwards, corporate first and then private practice. But I really enjoyed it at this stage in my career. It was fun to be the old dog that had to learn a few new tricks, and I enjoy the aspect of having multiple clients now instead of just one. Mm-hmm. When you're corporate counsel, your employer is your client, and you can look at the people that work at the company as your clients, but you're all really just doing the same thing. And now I have the opportunity to work with 200 businesses a year as opposed to just one. And,
well, and you can share you can end up sharing the wealth of knowledge from others with some of the other clients that you have. So that,
exactly.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you do, what areas that you practice in primarily, and then, certainly what the other areas that the firm handles.
I think the expression that gets the most amount of recognition and understanding is when I tell business people that I'm like a fractional general counsel. And so, we have fractional CFOs and fractional HR people. And so, I kind of fall into that. And the average small, medium business doesn't need a lawyer every day, or if they do, and that says something about them, but they really don't need one every day. And they really can't afford to have one on staff every day. And so what I do is I try to be the quarterback of the legal team. And so as a generalist, I handle all of the corporate governance related stuff, getting the business started and all the organization, corporate documents for that. And then I do a lot of contract work, a lot of work with businesses where they're either their contractual relationship with their customers or their suppliers. And then I do employment law. I kind of do the employment light side of it, where I do the policies and procedures and the onboarding and offboarding of personnel and that part of it. I'm not a litigator, so my partner Tanya and I work together when we get cases that I try to head it off at the pass, and then if it goes to litigation, then she takes it over. But my firm offers employment law, business and transactions law, litigation, intellectual property, real estate, and really my job is to kind of be able to meld into all of those groups and to get a client what they need. And as a general counsel, the other thing you have to be able to do is tell them, look, I can't handle this. We need to get an expert. Mm-hmm. Really try to, get them routed to the right folks that are going to help them.
Yeah. So really a full service business firm, that y'all can handle working with business owners, and, that's a nice process, because, you have so many firms that, we do estate planning. Oh, we do this family law, all this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But having one that really has that expertise on the business side and the intellectual expertise, in all these different areas, that's a huge win for small business owners.
Yeah, it is. And we do work with estate planners, and we work with family lawyers. We have I've done my fair share of business divorces, but we do tell people we don't do estate planning, we don't do family law, we don't do criminal. But we handle everything else. And right, it requires a certain amount of skill just to be able to spot what the issues are and get to the right place.
That's it. Well, and not try and, I see too many attorneys muddy it up. Oh, well, I can do that. I can do your wills for you. Oh, I can do this. I can do that. And it's like, okay, yes, theoretically you can. You do have the training, but maybe you want to bring in somebody else that has
true
experience.
And that's what I tell clients, is that there's no substitute for experience.
No.
I'm not the most inexpensive lawyer on the block. There are some tasks where hiring a lawyer right out of law school is perfectly fine to do. But to be able to take a look at a scenario and connect it up with something that you've encountered before or something similar, and it all falls into patterns, is really kind of the art to it. Science part is, I can get a template contract and fill it out, but the art part is working with people and knowing enough about business doing it for a long time to be able to help them through this situation.
Yeah. So when we talk about bringing you in as an outsourced general counsel, when's the best time to bring you in to a situation?
It's easier when it's early.
Okay.
It's so much easier to craft a scenario around potential problems than undoing those problems after the fact.
Mhm.
I will admit that if you listen to all of the advice that I give, you will never make any money. My job is to point out risk and tell you, be careful.
Yeah.
And if success in business is balancing risk and, going for it sometimes when you know what the risks are. And so the earlier I'm involved in a process, the easier it is for me to anticipate and point out those risks so that you can do not only legal things to shift that risk, but also build the project and build your operations around mitigating those risks,
Mhm.
so that the bad stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. I think people, as they do budgets, and I, as a consultant working with business owners, I see this so many times. They just don't take that into account. I remember when I started the co-working practices 5 years ago, or the co-working spaces 5 years ago. I mean, my first 3 hires were a bookkeeper, because I hate doing books, an accountant to help me figure out the tax part, and an attorney to just make sure I was doing everything right from starting the business to, making sure all my contracts and everything else. And I mean, I see that as it was just part of the budget. It was part of, what we strategized when we were building out the business. But I see so many people just want to wing it, or they want to do it on the cheap and everything else. And they end up, either crushing their business because they didn't think of things ahead of time, or they just are wandering aimlessly through life, and they're one lawsuit or one issue away from being out of business.
That can happen.
Yeah.
I do businesses that are right out of the box that don't have a lot of revenue. It's really hard for me to tell them, you should budget for legal expenses, although they probably should. With them, I try to come up with a plan where it's like, let's anticipate what you're going to do over the next year, 2 years, and have some kind of plan to deal with that, or at least what the legal issues are surrounding what you want to do. And then when you get to have revenues over a couple $1 million, I really try to push those clients to budget for me, or for any lawyer. And you said about getting a bookkeeper, accountants. If you can build your council of advisors early on, which should include a lawyer, even if you're just taking them out for coffee, and just telling them about what's going on. I enjoy doing that with clients, because I have a lot of creative people that are my clients, and they're looking at life a lot differently than I am, and I kind of learn some things from them about how they're approaching their business, or what they're involved in. And then I have some people that are just flat out hustlers that just work really hard. They're great to talk to too. They have 3 businesses and 2 jobs, and they're doing it. And I'm wondering how they find the time to do all this stuff. But I always learn from them. And so establishing that relationship it's kind of the secret sauce, because 1, I benefit from it personally, but 2 is the more I know about you and your business, the better I can cater my service to you. Some people, they want to know how the watch is built, and some people just want to know what time it is. And you have to be able to work with them
to figure out which one they are in that whole mix.
Exactly.
What are some, when you think about some of the new clients that you take on, what are some of the common traits that you find between the clients that you're bringing on of, God, I wish you'd, or these are the first things we tend to have to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing that I tell businesses where it's people that are not related, although sometimes it would help if people who are married or people who are related do this too, but is to anticipate the when you're not going to agree. Starting a business is great. It's the fun, happy time of, we're going to get together and we're going to do this, and it's going to be amazingly successful. And when I was part of that startup company, that was the best part about it is, we had this killer idea and we had a plan on how we were going to do it. But you need to have a mechanism in place for when you don't agree. And, from a purely contractual legal standpoint, that's the shareholder agreement or the limited liability company agreement is the contract between the owners. Talk about, well, what's going to happen if we don't agree on stuff, or how's the money going to be split up, or what if we want to bring in a new member, or what if one of us dies, or all things like that. And those are the kinds of things that we can help you with, and can at least ask those questions so that you anticipate it. You can get all that. You can get an agreement out of a form book, or you can go to LegalZoom or somewhere and get that stuff, but it's going to be the off the rack, and it may not fit your business, and it may not be what you need. And so I've had people that have come in and I've told them what the agreement says, and they're like, well, that's not what we agreed to. And I'm like, well, it's a signed contract that you both, both your names are on it. You kind of agreed to this, and your business partner's telling you that, what you think is the truth isn't the truth. So it's, that's the hardest part is that. And then beyond that, I would really encourage people to have a good contract with their customers. And there's so many different ways to do customer contracts. And so I'm not proposing that every deal, every customer interaction, you roll up to the customer's house and you got a 10-page agreement or a 100-page agreement, Franken contract. But we come up with a way where the terms of the sale kind of flow naturally in the sales process. And that's what 25 years in the consumer loan industry really taught me, is that, you got to learn how to take friction out of a transaction. And what that does is it sets the customer's expectations, because if stuff is written down and you give it to them, then they're going to be like, okay, well, now I get it, or hopefully they get it. And if they don't get it, then you can always point back to, well, look, we talked about this, and then we wrote it down, and I gave you a copy of it. And this is what I was working on, and God forbid it goes any longer than that. But if it does, then it's, here's the court we're going to fight about in it, and here's my limitation of liability, and here's exactly what I'll indemnify you for, and here was exactly, from a legal standpoint, what I was responsible for. And if you craft that agreement correctly, then you can either level or tilt the playing field in your favor. I really recommend.
Fantastic. Is there anything new that's going on in your business now that you've started to offer? Or
well, there's a lot new, and the COVID pandemic really changed. So there hasn't been a lot of new legislation passed, despite the fact that the Biden administration has been very active, but they've been very, very active in doing getting people back to work, doing the vaccine rollout and extending some of the programs. And so what we're seeing now is that business is moving again, but some of the kind of core tenets of that business have changed. We have lots of customers now or lots of clients, and we face this ourselves because we're basically a 20-person small business, just like the clients we serve. Do people want to come back to work and work in a traditional office? And how do you handle that? And what challenges are you going to face going forward not knowing exactly how things are going to shake out, but being the benefit of an economy where there's a lot of money out there and things are starting to roll again. So what we've seen is that the folks that have been waiting to do things like sell their business or change jobs or roll out some new product are starting to do it now. And so we've seen a lot of stuff pick up. And that's really what's new. And so, you know, I would encourage folks that are, if you're thinking something, you know, I always, I do this kind of flip little phrase when I sponsor things or do little talks about knowing a lawyer before you need one. You know, so now's the time to go out and, you know, meet your favorite lawyer, find a favorite lawyer, I guess, because, you know, just talking to somebody about, hey, I'm thinking about doing these things and picking our brains. You can do that for the price of a cup of coffee usually.
Apparently there's one that can be had for a cup of coffee here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. And then when we come back, Jim's going to go over his answers to the Fast 5 questions. And we'll be right back in just a second. Hey, it's Jeff here for T-Works Co-working. T-Works Co-working is a shared office space with everything from desks for you to share up to offices and everything in between. And T-Works has locations in Cedar Park, Texas, in Northwest Austin, in the Four Points area, and Dripping Springs. So if you need a place to work, you need to get out of the house, you need some help really building up your business, visit www.t-works.com. That's www.t-works.com. Hey, everybody, we're back from our break, and certainly I hope you take a look at some of our sponsors. We're back with Jim. We're going to talk about the Fast 5 questions. As we were talking about in the break, it's not the Fast 5th, it's the Fast 5. So, Jim.
I'll answer all of them as truthfully as possible.
And not plead the 5th on them, so we're good. All right, so Jim, we're going to start off. You wake up in the morning. You have all the knowledge in your head. Your business is gone. You have $500 in your pocket, a laptop, computer, place to live, and food and water. What are you going to do first?
Well, you know, we talked about how things are changing. One of the things that I really benefit from is I have a license to practice law, and unless you really screw that up, you don't lose that, you know. And so, I plan on practicing law for a long time. I'm in my mid-50s now, and I don't plan on giving it up even when I quote unquote retire. But I'm going to take advantage of the new gig economy that we have. There are a number of ways that I could go out and, you know, I figure I gotta earn some money. I got to do some things. And so if I got to do something right away, that's what I'm going to do, even if it goes back to summarizing depositions or stuff that I used to do when I was a young lawyer. You know, and it would be fun because you really do kind of get to pick, to an extent, what you want to do, you know, and do that. But,
awesome. Great answer to it. Second question, what's the biggest business mistake you've ever made?
You know, actually, in reading this, I went back and I thought about it. And when the good lesson that I learned in getting older and more mature is in negotiating some agreements with people and business relationships, I could have been nicer. And that's you know, don't burn your bridges. And sometimes just because you have the upper hand doesn't mean that you need to flatten somebody, no matter how much they tick you off. And so, you know, that's been something that has been a lesson that I've tried to learn, especially now that, you know, I represented, you know, I was an attorney for a Fortune 10 company, had gobs of money, and it's amazing how good of a lawyer you can be when you're negotiating from that position. You know, people amazingly want to agree with your terms, you know, and it's because you thought that you were this great attorney. No, it's not. It's because people want to go work for Dell, you know, and do business with Dell. And so when you're not the lawyer for Dell and you got to talk companies like Dell into doing business with you, it really teaches you how to conduct yourself a little bit differently.
Like persuasion skills have to come into
Exactly.
play a little bit there.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's a good book that you would recommend for another entrepreneur?
You know, I have been a big fan of the Lencioni series, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, or the 5 things the CEO does wrong, or all that. I really have studied those books, and now that I'm a partner in a law firm, which is different than a company. In a company, everybody gets in the room. We all have one mission. They say, okay, is everybody on board? Because if you're not on board, raise your hand, and at the end of the thing, you leave the room, you're all kind of in the same spot. When you're in a partnership, it's a little bit different. At least my firm is a little different. And so the art of getting along and some of those skills have really helped me even in the non-corporate field. And have helped me really kind of advise my clients on just kind of the simple stuff of navigating their workplace. And a lot of the business that I get, or advice that I give, is business advice. It's not legal advice. So that's something that really helped me.
Awesome. What is a tool that you use in your business every day? And it could be a technical tool. It could be, I've heard everything from a yellow legal pad to a little black book that I jot notes down. What's something you use every day?
Well, this is, I was going to, the thing that I use every day, unfortunately, it's a very boring answer, is Outlook. And, having a good system to use that as a tool to keep track of things and keep track of your life is important. But the yellow legal pad comes out when I really need to organize my thoughts. And I went to law school before everybody had a computer. And so, I am sometimes not good enough to just look at stuff online and be able to edit it or write it or draft it. And so if you ever see me with my yellow legal pad and my Flair pen markers, I got to have those too, writing stuff, then that I've gone back to square one on some things.
He's deep in thought.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What is a way that people can get a hold of you? What's the best way?
I'd say the best way is to go to the firm website, rrsfirm.com. It has information about the firm, all of the attorneys, and myself. It has, bios and links to how to get a hold of us best. So rrsfirm.com.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that in the show notes along with Jim's other answers to all of this, and links to the book that he recommended and everything else. So Jim, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it today. Great answers to the questions and a lot of great advice. I will tell you folks that that cup of coffee is probably the best money you've ever spent to get to know Jim, and just his advice and guidance, and really where his heart is. We've known each other for a couple of years, and I know him to be just that person that does care and really has a big heart for small businesses. So if you have questions, you need to have a conversation with a lawyer, hopefully before it gets too bad. I would highly recommend that you take him up on his cup of coffee, buy him a cup of coffee, and have some discussions on just where you're trying to go. So Jim, thank you for being on the show, my friend.
Jeff, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And once again, folks, we are on all the major channels. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Vimeo. We're also on all the major podcast channels that offer video. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, we're on iHeartRadio, as well as Podbean. So wherever you're seeing us, if you have a question for Jim or myself, please feel free to put notes in the comments section wherever you're at, and I can filter that back to Jim or connect you with him. In addition to that, if there are any questions that you might have or interests that you might have in future questions around the law or anything like that, put them in there and we can schedule another show to have Jim on. So thanks a lot. We'll see you back here for the next show.